I do want to get back to a previous point you just made. Are you saying rather, that the United States is responsible for worldwide issues from everything from Brexit to ISIS?
Our war in Iraq led directly to the creation of ISIS. It led to Brexit. See, ultimately, because we drove 4 million immigrants into Europe, and that was the impetus for the vote on Brexit. The flood of immigrants into those countries, and they're destabilized today. The riots we're seeing in France, there's problems now all over Europe because of that, and those are the direct blowback from our war in Iraq, and that's just one war. That war cost $3.6 trillion. And then it had spillover wars in Syria, which have kind of created enemies for us all over the world where we should have friends.
Foreign policy, as you're noting, continues to be on the forefront of the minds of American voters. Under a Kennedy administration, a Kennedy presidency, what do U.S. relations look like abroad?
My uncle was asked, President Kennedy was asked by his best friend, Ben Bradley, what do you want in your gravestone? And he told Bradley he kept the peace. He said the principal job of a president of the United States is to keep our country out of war. And he managed to do that during his 1,000 days in office. He never sent a combat troop abroad to die. He kept us out of Laos. He kept us out of Cuba in '61. He kept us out of Germany at the Checkpoint Charlie crisis in '62. He kept us out of Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis once again in '62. And he refused to send combat troops to Vietnam. And a month before he died, he ordered all military advisors home from Vietnam. And he said, this didn't make him an isolationist, and I'm not an isolationist. He said, we need to be projecting economic power abroad. I don't want children in Africa and Latin America, when they hear about the United States of America, to think of a man with a gun and in camo. I want them to think of a Peace Corps volunteer. I want them to think of the USAID program, of the Alliance for Progress, which he created those programs in order to put America on the side of the poor, to grow the middle class in countries all over the world. And as a result of that, today, there are more statues to President Kennedy in Africa and Latin America and in Asia, more boulevards named after him, more avenues, more parks and schools and universities and hospitals than any other president of the United States, and probably more than all other presidents combined. And that was an effective foreign policy. When he was president, we were the richest country in the world. We had half the wealth on earth. We had created a middle class who was the largest economic engine that ever devised by humanity, and we depleted that through our addiction to war. That's what's destroyed the American middle class, and I want to rebuild the middle class here and rebuild our moral authority abroad. I'm going to do that by winding down the war machine and competing economically by projecting economic power rather than military power.
Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany. Love talking to you.